Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Advancement and Alumni Relations Unit workshop series, skills workshop series. I just want to know, can everyone hear me? Because I am working remotely and my network doesn't seem very stable. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Gita, for that. Um, so welcome again. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you guys are enjoying the series. This workshop is mastering the interview, and I know a lot of us struggle with this, and it's going to be an amazing session as always. I'm not going to talk too much. I'm going to let Geeta do all the talking. Just to introduce Mrs. Geeta Winters again to you guys, again to you guys. Geeta has 16 years of broad recruitment experience. She is one of less than 10 people on the continent to hold an individual staffing master designation. She currently is a board member of the recruitment industry governing body. She is passionate about youth development, and we've seen that in the past few sessions that we've had with her, and empowering people with knowledge and skills to succeed. To this end, she founded Recruiters Care to give recruiters a platform to make meaningful change. And we're so grateful to have Geeta with us, and I'm going to um, give you the platform now to take us through the mastering the interview skills session, and I'm going to stop sharing my slides so you can start sharing yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right, let me share this one. Can you see my slides now? Because I can't see what I'm seeing.
No, not as
No,
yet.
not yet. There we go. Now?
Okay, cool. Yep, we
Hundreds.
can see it. And attendees,
Okay.
you're more than welcome to ask Geeta any questions. You can pop it in the chat box, and as Geeta is going along, you can ask her questions. So please, it's an interactive session, and you're welcome to. Just put up
Okay.
your hand so we can unmute your mic.
Super. Righty, everybody. I am super excited to see everybody that is attending this workshop. It is hands down my favorite topic in the whole wide world. It is the one that I am arguably the most passionate about because it is genuinely one that can make or break getting you a job. If there's any session whatsoever where participation is more important, it's this one. If nobody expects anybody to get any single answer right. That's why we're here, right? To learn, to engage, to practice, to get some ideas. And the more you give me to work with, the more I can help you. So let's do this and we'll see how we go. So before we even start, the question, or not the question, the statement that I get from most students is that I don't know how to interview. I have no idea how to sell myself or my skills or ideas or anything. And I'm a mother, and I would like to say to you that that is probably the least accurate statement ever. And I want to not take you back, maybe this week even, or maybe when you were still in school or whenever it was, and you wanted to go to that party that your mom said, no, no, my love, you're not going there. And you pulled out everything in the book and then some to convince your mom that that party was a good idea. Or maybe in Renal's case, trying to convince her mom to buy that pair of sneakers that she really didn't need but really wanted. In those moments, your influencing skills were top notch. And if you can tap into those and you can have gotten to that party, you can get yourself through an interview as well. So if anybody was thinking otherwise, rest assured you probably have a lot more skill than you think. So let's see where we're kind of at, right? You've done a whole heap load of work on your personal brand. You got a great CV, a recruiter or a hiring manager has found you, and now comes the time to nail the interview. So this is kind of where you are in your journey. And this is the step, the hump, if you want to look at it that way, getting you to start a job. And it really is so important. And it's something that I think people miss. What's the word I'm looking for? Underestimate how actually important this is. And if you think that you can wing an interview these days, I would like to say I think you're sadly mistaken. Interviewing these days is probably more of a skill than you imagine. So let's do a little exercise. And here I want people to shout out. I can't read the comments, so Renal can, or somebody can, if people aren't willing to be participative at this stage. But let's do a little bit of a demonstration. So you're in the market for a highlighter. And you're probably all a bit young to remember that old school fax paper. But let's pretend you're in the market for a highlighter because you get lots of faxes and you want to highlight key information. And off you go into P&A, and the lady in the front walks up to you and says, "Hi, can I help you?" And you go, "Yes, I'm looking for a highlighter." And you walk off down to the shelf and she takes out these two highlighters. And she says, "Here are the highlighters," and then stares at you and waits. And now there's a big awkward silence. And she goes, "Are you going to take one of these blue highlighters?" And in your head, I'd like you to tell me, between this highlighter and this highlighter, which one are you going to buy? Anybody? The one with the white or the plain blue one? Which highlighter would you buy based on that interaction? I can also do an awkward silence until somebody says something. This highlighter or this highlighter?
I'm just trying to change the settings. I've muted the mics when I was
Okay.
setting up the teams. So I'm just trying to unmute it so that they can unmute. But in the interim, you can just pop your answer into the chat box and I'll shout it out.
Okay, good one. Or you can pick one. This one, Renal, or this one, Renal, based on the discussion that we just had at the store. Ooh, maybe not the one I threw on the floor and broke. Let's go with, let's take this a different spin. Let's say we do the same exercise. We go into P&A, the lady comes up to us and goes, "Can I help you?" And I go, "Yes, I'm looking for a highlighter that I can use to highlight my fax paper." And she takes me off down the aisle and she goes, "We have two different versions of highlighter. This one is beautifully compact. It is guaranteed to fit into the smallest pencil case. It has a lovely tight lid, which you struggle to get off, and has a lovely sharp point, and it highlights." And I go, "Thank you for that. And what about the other highlighter?" And she says, "This is a wax highlighter. It is guaranteed never to dry out because it doesn't have liquid in the base. It also has a nice tight lid. And the lovely thing about this highlighter is that you can unwind it so that you can see how much highlighter is left. So you're never caught by surprise when you're trying to highlight something and there's no ink left. What's more is this highlighter, because it is wax, never fades, and 10 years from now, you are guaranteed to take out that fax and it won't have made the ink disappear, as is typical with normal highlighters. This highlighter also has come with a recommendation and a guarantee from Bostik that if your highlighter does not perform as it's stated, that you can have a 60-day guarantee and you can return your highlighter and they will send you two new ones. Which highlighter are you likely to take now? This one or this one? Because what I know about this one is that it's a highlighter and its lid clicks on nicely and it's small. But this highlighter does a whole bunch of things for me. Or does not really matter because I told you this is a highlighter. So I kind of did my job, right? You asked for a highlighter, here they are. Great. The truth is that when people come to an interview and they state the obvious and they go, this is a highlighter, the next person and the next person and the next person that come and say, I am a highlighter, become lost in the mix. And I go, yeah, but okay, but you didn't really tell me what about my fax paper highlighting story, nor did you address the needs of my job. So if in an interview you go in there and you randomly rattle off all the details about your CV, which they've already seen because that's the basis on which that you're in the interview, you've not really sold yourself. You're not convincing me to buy you as a product. So if you take nothing else from this whole talk today, but remember, am I saying that I'm a highlighter? Then I'm still going to actually be happy. So, interviewing is as much prep as it is the doing. And this is why it really matters, right? Because the person sitting next to you in your lecture hall and thousands more like them at other universities and tertiary education centers are your competitor. They are vying for that same job that you are. And if you both come saying, I am a highlighter, you're doing nothing to help your case to stand out in the thousands of students that are applying for that same job. The reality is, and I don't think anybody will disagree with me, that the youth unemployment in our country is at an all-time high. It's higher than it was years ago. And there are only so many work opportunities available, and only thousands, not only, and thousands of people applying for each one. So if you're not standing out, if you're not telling me why this highlighter is better than this highlighter, you're likely not to get a job at all, actually. So if you think prep is boring and it's going to be time consuming, you're right. Is it critical? Absolutely. The last reason why prep matters is because the company's had a chance to check you out. They've seen your CV. They've had the benefit of being able to go and look at your social media, your LinkedIn profile. They know quite a bit about you. And in order for you to feel empowered in that interview and to kind of have the knowledge and the responses ready, you have to be able to prep. It's as simple as that. So I wanted to really show you what I meant by this. And this is a search that I did this morning at 9:30. So I searched finance graduate and selected people. There were 214,000 results on LinkedIn. I did the same finance graduate and I selected jobs. There were only 126 results. Now, obviously, LinkedIn is not the only place that companies advertise, and there's probably a ton load of places which might increase the number of jobs available. But this is really the reality, that there are so many more people than jobs. And that is why prepping for this interview, your next interview, and quite frankly, every interview throughout your career becomes so, so, so important. Righty, let's get into it. Again, I want to say to you, the more you engage with me, the better off you will be. And the more input you get from me, the more you'll have to work with. So again, so many students say to me, but how am I going to know anything about this interview that I go to? And honestly, there is so much data available to you that you've got probably far more than you realize at your fingertips. So here's the first thing, right? You have the ability to go and research the company's culture. So how do they behave in the market? What can you find out about what they do with their employees? You can go and see if there are Glassdoor reviews on this company to get an idea of what they like to work for. You can go and check out their brand. What are their brand promises? What is their brand positioning? Because whatever that is probably very, very similar to what their culture is, because you live your culture through your brand promises. You can go and check out their social media accounts. Most companies are on more than one platform. Social media can be so telling of what it is like to work for an organization. You can see how many staff get-togethers there are. You can see what staff get up to in the company. You can see what events they do. You can see what industry expos they attend. There's a wealth of information you can get just from there. The next thing you have access to is what's in the news. What do you know about the company? Are they there for good reasons? How have they won awards? Have they merged or acquired new companies? That information can be valuable. What corporate social initiatives do they have? Are any of them related to something that you deeply care about? That would be something that you could align with during an interview. What financial data is available? Now, not all companies post their financials, but most listed companies' financial data is freely available, especially if you are interviewing for a finance role. Financial data can be important. Have they grown? Is there been a year-on-year decline? That could be telling. Have they utilized funding for mergers and acquisitions, or intense growth periods, or expansion to other countries? That financial data can be a world of information. You also have the benefit of being able to go and gently stalk your interviewers. They have LinkedIn profiles, they have social media pages. You can see what backgrounds they have. You can see where their interests are. You can see what they post, like, and comment on. You can see how long they've been in an organization. There is so much information that you can get about your interviewers that will help frame your responses in an interview. You can go and look at
Sorry,
which,
Gita.
yes,
There is a question in the chat. Can you also go through their annual reports?
absolutely. Anything that's available to you is free game, and something that definitely can be used to give you a good overview of a company. Absolutely.
Okay, and then there's another question, which is from my director. Welcome, Mr. Ngubane. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll give you a chance later to just have a quick word. He wants to know, what is a glass review?
Oh, Glassdoor is a platform. It's multifaceted, so it allows a lot of companies to post jobs, but it also gives employees, past and present, the opportunity to rate the company on a number of criteria, so that people have an idea of what it is like to work there, and what metrics are used in order to define work culture, experience, and relationships. Does that answer that question? Is there any others, Ronelle? Because it's important to get a good grasp of what is available to you before an interview.
Yeah, there's no more questions. Just attendees, you are able now to unmute your mic. You can put your hand up if you do have a question, and then we'll just call you up, and then you can ask the question.
Fab. Thank you, Ronelle. Okay, so you also can tap into your own network or to company pages and see who you may know that may work in an organization, who's connected to somebody that works in the organization, because their input, their knowledge of the interview process, the nuances, or the special areas of that environment might be incredibly useful for your interview. So don't forget to go there and see what's available. I do want to say, though, that you can't just reach out to people and go, hey, I need your help, please, but you've never made an effort to build relationship from them. So when we went to that map earlier on, when we were at that personal branding section, it's important for you to now, right now, start building a strategic network, start unpacking and connecting with companies and people in the kinds of spaces that you'd be wanting to be employed at further down the line. Because building that relationship now is what will give you the insight further down the road. So that's a topic for another one. So you can attend that personal branding one when it comes up again. And then lastly, you want to go and check out the company's website. There is a lot of information there, and it's critical that you look at it because they could ask you about the company in an interview, and you don't want to be caught with your pants down and not have an answer because you didn't do something as basic as really, really, really look at their website. You want to do some of the kind of logistical things. You want to know where are they based. You need to understand whether it's hybrid, remote, in office. How are you going to get there? Is it reasonable for you to travel? Because it's all fine and well going, I'd love to work in Karankua, and meantime you live in Springs, and you're never going to be able to get there, or you can if you spend 3 hours in the traffic there and back. If you were to relocate, what does living expenses look like there? What is the availability of accommodation? So you really want to understand that, because again, if they ask you in an interview, what are you actually going to say? And then lastly, the job spec is your absolute non-negotiable. If you do nothing else, and I really encourage you to really research well, but if you do nothing else, at the very least, take that job spec, read it line by line by line, even if it's 10 pages long. And quite honestly, no job spec's 10 pages long. But for every single line on that job spec, if you go, do I know how to do this? Have I done anything similar? If so, what? How would I explain that in an interview? What examples do I have to articulate that line on that job spec? Do I have a good example and a bad example? What context do I have that would give weighting to my response? As an example, let's say the job spec said data capture financial data, right? When you're doing this prep work, if you go, okay, I captured financial data at XYZ company, it was high volume data, so there were thousands of lines I was expected to capture every day, and it was relatively complex data. So I am, for that line on that job spec, I can say what, where, how, and when, then you're good. The job spec also gives you the candidate must have. That is all of those soft skills, hard skills, attributes they expect you to have. It's so worthwhile going through it and going, okay, of these, the ones that really are me is this one, and this one. And if I'm going to explain it, I would say this, this, and this. This is the example of where I've lived that out. This is where I can say that I've had an exposure to X. This is where to the degree to which I've used the system, a methodology, whatever else. But if you skip this section, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. You will definitely be caught off guard in an interview. You will definitely not know how to sell yourself, because it's not just that you've done it. It's the context of how you've done it that could set you apart from this highlighter. So if you do nothing else, I'm going to say it again because I promise you, is one of the most important things. If you do nothing else, but spend a huge amount of time taking your job spec and your CV and looking for the alignment and the context and the examples and the how, what, where, and when, you have set yourself up significantly more than most people do. And in a market where there's 216,000 candidates and 126 jobs, you really, really want to do this. Are there any questions on this so far? Or if there's something you're unsure of, because it really is so important. I don't want to skip this too quickly. All good?
I don't see any hands or any
Okay,
questions in the chat box. Yeah.
thank you. Okay, so if anybody's already interviewed, you'll know that that tell me about yourself question probably comes up in every single interview, regardless of whether you're fresh out of varsity or you are 10 years into your job search. Every single time. And most people flail around in this one. So let me tell you, after probably interviewing thousands of candidates and probably hundreds and hundreds of graduates, let me tell you what a typical answer sounds like. And then if this is how you've responded, you can stick your hand up, you can stop me, you can ask questions, but this is what it normally sounds like. My name is Gita, and I grew up in Johannesburg, and I went to school at Sandringham High School, and then I decided that I wasn't going to go to varsity, so I started working at Liberty Life, and then I went to Norwich, and then I went to Fetcher, and after that I went back to Liberty Life, and in my Liberty Life days, I started working as a this, and then I started moving to this, and I'm very keen to grow my skills in this, and I'm looking forward to working for you, or a variation of that. That is absolutely what most people say, because it's where do I start, right? The question's so big. Do I mention my brothers and sisters and dogs and cats? Do I talk about my favorite color? Do I go through every module of every semester that I've ever done? Do I talk through my duties? What do I actually have to say? But again, I want to bring you back to the highlighter. If you are repeating what they already know, which they found in your CV, and is the basis for which you are sitting in that interview, you are not selling yourself. You are stating, I am a highlighter. That's it. 214,000 people that are highlighters. You have not done anything to make me sit up and listen. Not at all. So maybe somebody wants to give me a faculty that you're from or a job that you are hoping to apply for, and I will give you a different version of how this could sound using the name, fame, game, aim, and same principle. Anybody? Give me a faculty or
Peter,
a
there is a comment in the
yes.
chat.
Mhm.
A lot of job adverts have minimal information. This does not help when trying to align skills, experience, and knowledge to the position. Ideally, you may want to look at adverts of similar vacancies and prepare using the information provided in these adverts.
This is true. You could also go and look at the company and find people on LinkedIn that are actually in that job or were in that job that you're applying for, because their duties and their duties and responsibilities may actually give you a lot more information. But you're right. There are going to be times when you have very little to work with and you have to use broader examples to frame what you might say in an interview. Okay, anybody want to tell me which faculty they're from and what job they might be applying for, so that I can help you to show you a real practical example of what you might say? Rasmi? Rasmi, I
You
see
can
your hand
unmute
up.
and speak.
I can't see if she's muted or not, or he's muted or not.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much for the informative session. I really enjoyed the highlighter example.
You're welcome. You've disappeared, Rasmi. What faculty from what job would you like to apply for, so I can try and relate it for you?
I'm from the short course unit, and I just want to know what is a good way of marketing myself for career development purposes.
Okay, so you want to work in what? So what would your job title be when you applied for a job?
I am a project coordinator.
A project coordinator. Okay, in a
Yes.
specific industry, because you broke up there a second.
In education.
In education. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So if we're taking the name, fame, game, aim, and same principle into mind, what we're really looking for is what makes you unique relative to that job spec. How am I going to demonstrate or articulate or talk about my skills and knowledge? How you think I'm going to add value, and how are you aligning with the culture of the organization, or perhaps even the role, because a organization has a culture, a team adopts the culture differently, and the role requires certain cultural fits as well. So in your space, you could say, I am a seasoned project coordinator in the education space, so that's your name and your game. In my previous roles, I have had to deal with multiple different project environments where I have managed about 20 concurrent projects to differing levels of complexity. That's your fame. I'm looking to make a move into your organization because I believe that I can carry those same qualities into your space. As an example, out of the 20 projects that I managed in 2024, every single one of them was delivered under budget and on time with minimal scope creep, and where the outcomes of those projects were successfully adopted by the various faculties in the education space. And the students' feedback was that the projects were so well managed that they made an immense difference to that environment. I'm sure that if I carried that forward, you would see equal results. That it would be an example of how to kind of align it better. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much. Yes, it does.
Okay, lovely.
Thank
Renal,
you.
is there a different example or different
Yeah,
one?
there's I have a lot of
Mhm.
um questions and comments.
Mhm.
How long should the tell me about yourself be? And there's the Faculty of Engineering and Built Environment quantity surveying.
Okay, fabulous. All right. Let's I want to go back to the mom example, right? Because it's probably the one that's most relevant for all of us. So when you're telling your mom about why you want to go to the party, and your mom starts telling you why she does not want you to go to the party, and she's been talking for 1 minute and you're starting to tune out. That's what an interview is going to do. And I'm not saying it should be 1 minute. Realistically, you should be able to get this done in under 2 minutes. When you go more than 2 minutes, you probably almost repeating the same thing in a different way, or you haven't been concise enough to get your point across, because this is to set yourself up for an interview. The rest of the interview is to kind of define or expand on what you said here that will be relevant to them making a decision. Okay, so if you take, I can send Renal a prep sheet where it's gonna kind of got this is what you need to write a sentence, practice it out loud, record yourself, time yourself, so I can give you a guide that will help you get it down to being practical, concise, but impactful. Okay, let's get a built environment one. Okay, so you want to look at quantity surveying. So you could go, I am a graduate quantity surveyor and have done some VAC work and a lot of project work as a volunteer as a quantity surveyor. I genuinely believe that I have been so quick to adopt understanding and producing accurate bills of material that I have been commended on this through the various organizations that have allowed me the opportunity to back work with them. If I can bring this forward into your environment, I am sure that I can reduce the time spent on bills of material, and the accuracy to which I have developed those means that the project costing is that much better and adds value to the project overall. I look forward to explaining this further as we go through this interview. You can talk about your qualification. If you don't have a lot of work experience, you can go, I have a degree or a national diploma or a BTech in X. I excelled at, my favorite modules were, I got distinctions in, I ran projects of. So even if you don't have work experience, there's a lot you can say in this space that could be transferable successes or skills, if that makes sense. Would anybody else like to comment or try it or give me a point or two of what they think they might want to say that what we can talk about? Because I promise you now, you're not the only one who's unsure, and anything that you contribute probably will help every single person on this call.
Gita, there is a lot in this chat box. There's PR
Okay.
and communications, there's health science, operations management, organizational development position, information and communication technology,
Okay.
junior mechanical engineer, and project designs and planning. So it's a diverse group
Okay.
of people, medical orthotics and prosthetics.
Okay.
So
Wow. Okay. Cool. I see there's a number of hands up. Ronald, maybe can you ask one of them to talk it through, because maybe we can have a conversation that helps.
T. Mohammed, you can unmute and chat.
Good day. I hope everyone is well. This has been a really informative session, ma'am. So for instance, during my university time, I would volunteer with other organizations, but not necessarily in my field, as my field is very, very small.
Mm-hmm.
So would I still transfer that into speaking about into the job interview, because it doesn't correlate much, but it still gave me skills that I may use?
Absolutely. 100%. You know, I think too often we think we didn't get anything from those jobs. First of all, volunteering speaks about your commitment to your own growth and development. So that's one thing, no matter what it is that you did. The second thing is volunteering. It sounds all like loosely of like loose roles and but realistically, you probably had rules, policies, procedures, some reporting structure. So you could talk about your ability to understand requirements, to execute on jobs, to deal with difficult people, I don't want to use the word multitask, it's my worst word, to task switch, to manage multiple functions, to deal with difficult people. There are so many skills that you can take over. And quite honestly, and I say this all the time, you own the narrative. The story and the way that you choose to tell me your story is what allows me to make that connection between what you do and what I want of this person. And where you choose not to tell me something, the interviewer could see it as they don't do it. When you choose to give me something to hook onto, you allow me the choice to decide whether that transferable skill works for me or not. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. And I also have a follow-up question with that.
Sure.
For instance, a potential employer wants to ask me regarding my networks.
Mm-hmm.
And with the volunteering that I've done, I've built up a vast network.
Mm-hmm.
Do I say it out immediately, or do I keep some and retain some so that I'm not exposing myself at the end of the day? Sure, you can go and get the same network, but I have built those bonds over the past 4 years, and it's painstakingly that I've done it. So do I expose
Absolutely.
everything, even when it comes to like medical aids, for instance? I've had a person recently who I was in it happened to be that I got to know her, so now we can like go into medical aid and at least um have a bit of leeway when they want to authorize stuff.
I think the answer is a balance, right? You
Okay.
want enough evidence to show that you have a significant network, but there's a number of things that you need to take into consideration. So you can play the Poppy Act card if you want to. You can say, I have a significant network in this industry, this space, and this space. I do not have people's specific permission to share details with you in this interview. But when I'm successful, did you hear I said when, not if? But when I'm successful for this role, I guarantee you that I will very openly tap into that network for the benefit of the organization where it's applicable.
Okay, that makes a lot of
Strategically.
sense. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Any other questions tell me about yourself? Because this is your opening statement, right? You want to set yourself up really well here.
There is a comment, Gita. Your introduction should be clear and concise. You could provide a brief overview of your background and highlight your relevant experiences. You could mention some notable achievements or specific projects, be it academic or through practical work experience, that demonstrate your skills and accomplishments. And then just to follow up, volunteering is an excellent way to gain workplace skills.
And I highly recommend it. Start volunteering right now. Year 1, vacation 1. It seems like, oh, but I need a break. Yes, you do, but you also need a job and you need to stand out later on. The point about your work experience, your qualifications. Absolutely, you want to be mentioning those, but you don't want to be mentioning them in what is obviously on your CV, right? So you don't want to go, I started working at, and then I volunteered at, and then I went to, and 20 minutes later, we've regurgitated your whole CV, but you've not told me how you stand out or what those experiences will mean for me in this new role. That's what you want to get. So it's not a rinse repeat story. It's this is what I've done. This is how I've done it, and this is why it will help you. Okay, I saw there was a hand there now.
Zedem Kize, you can unmute.
Hello. So my question is more regarding job shadowing instead of volunteering. So my question is there a certain way to go about it? Because I'm currently in my second year, so I'm just trying to get experience and understand how things go in my field of study. Is there a certain way to go about it? Because I've gotten a few replies where it's like, oh, just finish a qualification. I don't know, maybe I'm not setting myself in a certain way.
You know, the truth is that job shadowing is really difficult. It's less formal, and there's risk of confidentiality breaches, sharing of IP. So a lot of companies are not overly excited about it. The truth is you're going to have to reach out to a lot more people to see if you can get it right. But what I would say is if you go on to meetups.com, there are a number of industry meetups very specifically, and there's pretty much one for everything on the planet. Join those groups, attend those meetup sessions. Some are in person, so you'll have to look for ones in your local location. Some of them are online. It gives you there's generally a topic of discussion by a guest speaker in that space, but there's also networking opportunities, discussions that happen there. It might achieve the same purpose with a much easier route. Okay.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Renal, am I okay to move on? I can always take questions at the end.
Just one more. I'd like to know how to do you professionally approach a company for volunteering, because some of them don't allow that.
Yes, you're right. Some of them don't allow that, and in which case you're probably not going to get that. So there's a couple of ways. It might be through a network, somebody that knows somebody who's willing to allow a volunteering opportunity. There are a lot more volunteer opportunities through formal VAC work. And any and all of the non-profit organizations sometimes facilitate volunteering a lot easier than, say, corporate companies. However, having said that, corporate companies do run some events, hackathons, career days, all sorts of things. So when you're on their radar, it's much easier to approach them. That's why that 2-step backs into strategically branding yourself, connecting strategically, being present, both offline and online, becomes so important when you do start reaching out. Because my question is always, when you reach out to me and I go look at your LinkedIn profile, am I seeing anything there that's worthy of me giving you the airspace? If not, maybe that's your why. So, but understand that not all companies allow it or facilitate it. So that also might be why you're struggling. Okay. If there's any other questions, we can park it to the end. I don't mind staying on a little bit later because it is something, this is something I'm so passionate about. So I'm happy to stay there. So let's look at some practical examples. This is the context of the role, right? You're applying for an IT software developer position. It's in a consulting company with a focus in fintech. The company values innovation. They use multiple technologies. So let's go Java, C#, Python. Let's use those as examples. And the company is big on continuous improvement. That's the frame. Now, if I'm going to go there as an IT software development candidate, and this is what I might say. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to interview with you. I currently hold a BTech in software development, where my primary learning language was C#. However, I have done a number of short courses in my own time to develop my scripting skills, my SQL database knowledge, and to develop skills like R and Python, which I see are hugely complementary to the type of work that you do within fintech. I have a particular interest in financial systems and technology, where I have done some VAC work with Yoko, and have seen how practically applied payment gateway technology can be in our environment. I attend meetups, I attend expos, and I eagerly look for every opportunity I can to improve myself. And I believe that my prior working project experience in this space and this space would be of value to you, because it shows that my ability to use multiple technologies and to apply basic software principles and unit testing have been successful in the past and will be in the future. Yeah, I've addressed fintech. I've addressed continuous improvement by telling them I learn in my own time. I've told them what languages that I've used. I told them that I understand fintech and have actively sought out opportunities there. But I could have also talked about projects projects that I've managed. I could also have talked about collaboration in my projects, where I was engaging with a business analyst, where understanding requirements helped me frame the development that I actually did. So there's a lot of options, but that's kind of how it would sound. Right? Anybody have questions on this? I think we've covered it, but I think we'll park questions on tell me about yourself to the end now. Okay, next kind of common question or things that get covered in the interview are, what are your strengths? And obviously on the flip side, what are your weaknesses or areas of development? So strengths is one of those things where there's always two sides to it, right? Just like the job spec, there's the duties you're expected to do with its own bunch of hard skills. There are the collaboration and engagement side of your job spec with all of its soft skills. So when you are in an interview and you're talking about strengths, you'd be wise to bring both sides into it. So you want to talk about a technical strength, what you know how to do. I am proficient at C# development. I am particularly strong at bank recons. I am really good at bills of material. I'm particularly strong on content development, understanding the SEO implications of it. That would be a technical strength. You want to talk about your soft skills. And I hate the word soft skills. They're critical skills these days. So you might want to talk about your analytical ability. If you're a software developer, the ability to hear business in business skills. Sorry, out of that. Your business skills or your analytical skills, understanding business requirements, being able to hold conversations with users, that aids and supports your ability to deliver good software projects. You could also talk about your people skills, right? Or your creative side. So if you're a content creator in that communication space, that creative side helps frame the way that you produce ideas and concepts and imagery for a brand. You want to talk about all of it. But more importantly, and I think you're going to start seeing the theme through this, is you want to back it up with some really, really good examples. So I'm particularly good at, let's say, bank reconciliations. And this is evident when I was at ABC Company, where I did 5 large volumed bank statements with transactions of 1,000 lines each, up to 20 million rands in value. That would be context that shows and demonstrates your strengths. You could, for argument's sake, say, I am particularly good with unit testing software code. How do you know this? Well, in my previous environment, I was typically the go-to person when other more junior developers were stuck, and I would be able to help them troubleshoot problematic code. So strengths needs to be two-sided. Technical, soft skills, backed up with a really good example, and remembering that you need to close that loop. Don't leave the interviewer open to their own interpretation. You tell them why this is going to make a difference to their space. Anybody have questions on this or want to ask me something relative to their own niche? No? Going
No,
once?
there's just some comments that we can park until the end.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Rina. Okay, so here's an example. This is the context. You're a graphic designer. It's technical products. It's a multimedia environment and an incredibly or extremely competitive space. So you could say, I am particularly skilled at the Adobe suite of products and have worked with both automotive and abrasive materials in my previous role, and have past volunteer experience within a technical product environment where we used both in-house magazines and catalogs. There were social media components. I also managed the website e-commerce system where there was a lot of product-based information. I was also tasked with creating the visuals for the front end of the website, as well as for print media and for the banners and the like, which we used at the expos. Because this is the automotive parts and spaces is so competitive, my ability to understand brief quickly and to apply research of the market and international best practice has meant that we were able to deliver content that was graphically appealing and provided a lot of user experience interfaces way faster than a number of competitors. And I think that experience would add value to your environment. Yeah? Okay. Flip side, areas of development. And sometimes in an interview, this can be asked as, what is your weakness, right? Okay, so I want to start by saying we need to be honest. Nobody's saying that you must lie in an interview. Never, ever, ever must you lie. But you, just like you're a multifaceted person with 15 or 20 years of life behind you, you don't need to tell them everything about you, right? So again, if you were coming in to buy these 2 highlighters, I've talked about the fact that the lids click on well, but I used that. I didn't say to you that it's so freaking hard to get the thing off, right? So I didn't say that. What I said is that the lid stays on really well, so it won't leak in your bag. I could have said, this is such a great highlighter, but yes, I can't get it off, right? You don't need to do that. You also want to avoid personality weaknesses, and there's so many reasons why. First of all, you can't change who you are. Me personally, I have zip zero patience. I'm on the minus 500 scale. Now is my favorite word. I cannot change that. I can bite my tongue for a while, but when there's a deadline looming and I'm already starting to twitch, it's going to come out. I'm going to go nag somebody. I'm going to start being demanding. It's got that ugly side of it is coming out. Can the manager work with that? Maybe. Does it open you up for affinity bias? Maybe. What if the guy had Gita, absolute nightmare, drove people mad, made Jane cry, was never late. My projects were never late. So I could spin it to say my impatience meant that. That's a Google answer. But I'm not going to change that. So if Jane was a nightmare, the interviewer is going to think I'm a nightmare because that's my experience of somebody who lacks that amount of patience. You're better off sticking to things that can be achieved. So luckily for you at this stage of your career, that's almost anything, right? So let's go with that bank recon environment. Let's say you go, I'm technically proficient with Excel. I know how to use all of the functionality for what I have needed to execute on now. However, I do believe that there is a lot of advanced functionality on Excel that I would like to develop on so that I could do other things with Excel as I progress through my career. What does the manager think? Oh man, I got that covered. Jane can sit and help him learn those other functions. We have an open Udemy account in our business. There's a number of good Excel courses there. And we've got an in-house training team. Excel sorted, no problem. You've given them something to work with, but you've also not opened up the door for bias. And you've shown that it is something that you can achieve in the short term. Or it could be technical development. So let's use that IT developer example. You could say, I have worked on C# in a number of projects throughout my qualification, and I, in my own time, have developed applications using C#, but I have not used it to this in this kind of environment. However, I do believe that given some guidance, that this is an area that I would quickly be able to master or grasp, if you want. Any questions on these two? Strengths or weaknesses or areas of development?
No, none at the moment.
Okay, super. Let's look at an example then. So an intern accountant, you're applying for an intern accountant position. It's an FMCG environment, large or high volumes of data, and they use Xero as their financial reporting system. You could say, I have not used Xero, but I am proficient with QuickBooks and Pastel. And what I have seen based on that experience is that both of them, while the interfaces may look different, the capturing data is identical. And if I just spent one day having a look at Xero, I'm quite sure I could find the invoicing button and therefore capture the correct amount in utilizing that system. Easy. I can send you on a course. The current accountant can sit with you. Xero has an online tutorial. We area of development managed, tick. Good? Right. Okay. There's a whole range of competency or situational based questions. And these are primarily driven by that job spec. So when I've said in the beginning, go through that job spec line by line by line by line, have an example, know how, where, when, and what. What is the context? What are my good examples, bad examples, things that went well, things that didn't? This will come into play when you're dealing with these. So competency-based questions are, talk me through how you would do a bank recon. That's a process. Talk to me about how you would manage a conflict with a difficult person, or give me an example of a conflict that you had, or a methodology question. That is a process, not a step-by-step guide, like I click here, I fill in that, I do this. It is a methodology. So let's say you are good, you in the IT space. You could utilize the Scrum framework for that. That would be a methodology. Or if you're in the manufacturing space or process engineers or industrial space, in that space, you could use I think it's a 5S or the lean methodology. So how would you utilize those? What applications of them would there be? How would you problem solve? So if I go, give me an example of a time when XYZ happened and how would you manage that? The way that you approach problems is a methodology. What you did to solve it, step by step, is a process. It's different. Does anybody want to get an example of this or to ask questions on the difference? Because how you explain it is different.
Could you please make an example?
Okay. So if I were to say, explain the process of how you would create an invoice, I would go, I would get the report from the sales team. I would have a look at what products and information. I would check the client's details. Do I have the right information to invoice them? I would then access the module in the finance package. I would input the invoice data. I would double check the tax status. I would look at the balances. I would then input the email. I would send it off, and I would add that to my aging analysis. That would be the steps you would do to create an invoice. A methodology would be, you are tasked to create an invoice and you notice that the system is not functioning properly and it is pulling through the wrong tax. What would you do? Your methodology would be to go and have a look at the supply or the vendor that you're trying to invoice. Are they perhaps tax exempt? Do I need to create a special rule in the system in order to cater for that problem? Is there perhaps a issue with the accounting system? So if I know of a client who has a similar tax status, could I go and create a dummy statement or invoice to see whether that system, that issue could have been resolved on that client? And perhaps I could go and copy and paste the settings in order to solve this problem. Does that make sense? Yes? No? Maybe?
Yes, there's a general thumbs up.
Okay, fabulous. Okay, so, and I'm sure you've heard of the STAR method before. It's a great way to answer almost every single competency or situational question that there is. Really simple to manage, but it also helps you for that person that asked me, how long should an answer be? That under 2 minutes kind of story. This framework helps you to keep to that, but still get all the basics in. So the S is for explain the situation. And it's also a good reminder to be specific, to set the context of it. So if we go at ABC company, we had to capture a large amount of data within a very tight time frame to achieve X. That was your situation. The T is the tasks. It's the task, what you physically had to do. I had to complete a bank recon. I had to capture data. It's the duty, the thing that you needed to get done, right? It's not the problem. It could be the problem, but it's more around what you have to do. The A is the actions that you took. So you may have had to negotiate timelines. You may have had to delegate. You may have had to go and get extra resources on the project. You may have had to speak to IT to see if something could be automated. It's all the peripheral stuff that you had to do to allow you to achieve the task. It's physically how you went about it, the way that you tackled the problem that is important here. And then R is the result or the outcome. Now, it should be quantifiable here, right? So you should be able to say we achieved 80% of those objectives, or we achieved 100%, or we optimized and the result was a 20% saving in the tax submission or whatever the case is. But remember that they could also ask you for a negative outcome. something that did not go well, and how you manage that. So after the R would then be an L. What lesson did you learn from that? How would you have applied that going forward? So if you can just and if you sit with this method line by line by line on that job spec, and you can apply this to every line, you will almost be able to anticipate every question based on those duties in that job spec. At the bottom, you'll see that there's a guideline on how much time you should spend on the various sections. So 20% of it should be giving the context and explaining the situation. 10% of it is what you had to actually get done. 60% of it was how you went about it. What did you need to do? How did you do it? What attributes could you talk about that sell you against that requirement? And then 10% is the outcome. Because that's an easy thing, it's quantifiable. So it's telling them what happened after the fact. So it's the least amount of time that you could spend. Anybody want to ask me some questions on this?
Gita, there is a comment, the STAR method. Can you make an example? They're struggling to understand what it is about. So
100%. Okay. Let's take okay, let me do a relatively simple one. The question in the environment says, give me an example of a time when you had to deal with a conflict situation in your workplace. Okay, so I would go. I have, you can see from my CV that I haven't had any work experience. There was a time when we were working on a group project in my third year of varsity. The person that was responsible for a certain aspect of the role did not meet their deadlines, which put the rest of the group under pressure. And it was a key project that was what was critical to our semester marks. That's the S. Task was, I needed to get the project back on track. I needed to take care of getting that function that person was responsible for done in order for the rest of us to collate and complete that. That's the task. Actions, what did I do? I did an analysis of what the person had already completed, where the rest of the project team was. I then reached out to this person in question. I asked them what had been done, what had not been done, where their problem was, what the stumbling blocks were, what they thought they were going to be able to achieve, how we were going to be able to manage the timelines, what the options would be with the rest of the group. I then put together a project plan or an action plan of exactly how we were going to do this. The outcome was that the rest of the group was able to submit their projects on time, although some of us had to pick up extra functions for this individual. And going forward, we knew that if this person was in our group again, that we would have to manage them differently from the outset. Good now, does that make more sense? Do you want me to do another example using maybe a more technical question? We good with that? Can we move on now? I can always park it at the end.
Yep, we can move on. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes. Can you do another example?
Absolutely. Okay, so let's say the example is all right. You are in a finance team, and there has been an audit process that has been initiated. The internal auditors are coming in a week's time, and we have just realized that we are significantly behind in our tax compliance. You are part of the team that needs to manage that. How did you go about this situation? Whilst I may not have done the exact situation at ABC Company, we had a key deadline to meet where we needed to ensure compliance to a process where there was going to be an audit on X, Y, and Z. My role within that team was to ensure that the bills of material were collated, filed, and audited, and that those translated into the projects that they were responsible for. How did you do that? Well, there were over 300 bills of material that had not been specifically filed and grouped and allocated to projects. So what I did was that I categorized each one of them. I looked at the data that was most readily available on our system. I went and used and created tags so that I could see if there were any information that would be easily identifiable on that. I then filed those according to that. I then assessed how many of the 300 were left. I saw that there were too many to be able to meet the deadline. And so I asked the manager, negotiated that we only do the ones that were in the audit period, and that I would prioritize those first and tackle the balance in the next coming week. The outcome was that we received a positive audit result, and that I had finalized and filed and tagged all the remaining documents within the required period of time. Does that give a better explanation? It's really it's not that complicated. So you can't tell me a story unless you told me how the story relates. So imagine, again, the mom story is such a good one. You get into the car and your mom goes, "How was your day?" And you go, "Mom, you're not going to believe it. In history class, do you remember that kid I told you about? That's the S. T. The teacher told us we had to do this. You know what that kid did? That's the T. A. Now I got stuck in a project with this kid and we had to do this in the class and this is what I had to end up doing to get our stuff done." Mom goes, "What happened?" "Well, we finished the project, but the teacher said we could have done this, this, and this." It's the story that you tell to answer any question. Just being a little bit more specific and intentional about the how, the what, the when, and the outcome. Does that make sense? Better?
Gita, there is somebody who's given another example. Can I share?
Yes, please.
Situation. During my internship at Company A, I was assigned a project with a tight deadline and limited resources. Task. The project was to develop a comprehensive marketing strategy for a new product launch. Action. To overcome this, I first conducted thorough research, analyzed market trends, and gathered insights from potential customers. I then collaborated with the marketing team, delegated tasks, and leveraging everyone's strengths. Results. By staying organized and focused, we successfully completed the project on time and achieved positive results, increasing product awareness by 30% within the market.
Brilliant answer. Absolutely spot on. Got it to a T. Very good one.
Yeah, and that's it.
Okay, cool. Right. Those are probably your most common questions. Strengths, weaknesses, tell me about yourself, all the competency-based questions around the duties and the expectations of this role. But there's a bunch of others that come up frequently, not every interview, but frequently. Why should we hire you? Maybe asked a different way. What makes you the perfect person for this job? Would anybody like to try it? Why should we hire you? So maybe the person who did that whole star method one, maybe they would like to give this one a bash. Why should we hire you? What would you say now? Anybody want to unmute? Doesn't have to be. Come on, guys. The more you engage, the more you get the chance to test your skills out. And remember, it's a safe zone. Nobody expects perfect. That's why we're here.
T. Mohammed, you can unmute and ask your question.
Okay. I have a question. It's how do we balance being confident about what we did without looking like an arrogant person?
A very good question. It's exactly that. It's balance. It's sticking to facts, so something that can be verified post-interview. So you tell me you improve, you saved the company 30% on a specific thing. If I went and referenced you and I said, she said that she saved you 30%, and they could go, yes, that's great. It's also your choice of words. An interview is not what you say, it's sometimes how you say it, right? So your choice of words can also be really strategically used to say, so let me, you might, and your tone too, right? So you could say, instead of saying, I very proudly saved that company 30% just because I was there, you could say, the outcome of this was that there was a 30% savings, which I contributed significantly to. And making sure that you balance your tone, your body language, the choice of words. But the fact is that nobody is going to blow your horn for you in an interview. That is your job. And it is it, let me just, is self-promotion when you're in an interview where you have direct competition for a role, or is it arrogance? I'd like to say there's a good, you need to have a good sway between self-promotion, because if you're not talking about why you stand out, you're not standing out. So maybe role play with somebody, ask them if they think it sounds boastful or arrogant or overly confident. And you could also make statements that go, I really want to talk about my verifiable achievements, and which you're welcome, which you're welcome to check post, but this is what I've done. So again, choice of words, probably your biggest win there. Does that help?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Right. Why should we hire you? Or tell me why you're the best person for this job. If you're telling me you're a highlighter, so if you're telling me I've got the skills and experience to do this job, well, duh. That's why you're in the interview in the first place, right? It's not about that. It's how do you use your skills and experience to make a difference to me? Why would I care about the fact that you can be there and do a recon? So can Jane and Tom and Harry that I'm interviewing. If you're telling me that I should hire you because I have such amazing, no, let me not use amazing analytical skills, because that could sound arrogant, that my analytical abilities have successfully proven that I am able to find financial anomalies faster than another person, and have therefore improved efficiencies and have been able to recoup funds quicker. That's why you should hire me, because when I come into your environment, I'm going to be able to do the same thing. It's the why I should have you, not the fact that you can do the fundamentals of the job. It's the value proposition, the unique contribution you would make to my team. Those are the things that we need to be talking about in why you're the perfect match for that position. You might also want to talk about things. Let me give you ways to think about it. Let's say you consistently achieved distinctions throughout your qualifications in a kind of grouping of areas. And that is something that would be hugely valuable to them. You want to talk about that. Maybe you're the go-to person for something on your team, and that would mean that you are particularly strong in that area. That could be a motivation for hiring you. It could be that you've had specific or unique experience on a project or a sector or a client or a product for that matter. That could be a differentiator. Maybe if you've already worked for a year or two and you've had consistently strong performance reviews, and you can talk about the ways where you've been above average and why, that could be a good answer for you. So it's not about just talking about your strengths. It's about how those strengths have been utilized into making significant difference to an organization or a role or a space that you have contributed to. Does that answer that question? Does anybody have any questions on that maybe before I move on? Just want to see how much time we've got. Okay. Anybody? We good? Okay.
10 minutes.
Yeah, I've got it. I saw on my clock now. Thank you. Why do you want to work for us? That's not because you've got a job or because I have the skills. It's where your research comes into play. It's what do I hope to gain from that? You work in a field that I'm hugely passionate about. Fintech is the future. Oh, I see you use blockchain. I honestly value the principles of blockchain, and that is something that I want to build my career on. Or I'm particularly impressed with your client base and your growth of your business. I see that your value systems align with mine. To look at it a different way, if I got you as a recruiter, an offer from company A and company B, the same salary in the same office building with the same chair and the same lunches, and everything would be identical, why would you choose company A over company B? That's the answer they're looking for. The only place you're finding that is by doing significant research and genuinely understanding what you will get from it, because remember, this is a two-way street. It's an exchange. You're going to deliver something and you are going to get something, and both of those need to work. So why you want to work for them is equally as important as why you want, or they want you to work for them. Okay. Salary expectations. Oh, this is a hot topic, and I really don't want to get into this too much, because quite honestly, it's a completely different thing altogether. It's a topic all on its own. But there are interviews, and people take exception to the fact that there's a budget and there's your payslip, and they should say the budget first, and then you'll share your payslip, or they ask for your payslip, they're not prepared to give you a budget. There's a whole hoo-ha about this. Okay. The truth is that there is a budget. But the budget is the max. That does not automatically guarantee you the max, right? The max is relative to skills, experience, your value proposition, the way that you might engage with the team, how you might be productive sooner. And if you are faced with this in an interview, the very best answer, and again, goes back to the research you did right in the beginning, is that based on my research, for a person with my qualification and work experience and what I perceive to be my value proposition, and what I've investigated in terms of a market-related salary, I would look around this number. But I am open to negotiating on a market-related package. And if they go, well, what is that? So you then need to go, well, the truth is that salary structures are different from one company to the other. So in order for me to be able to give you a number, I need to understand your benefit structure, the contribution rates, the rules where flexibility is allowed. So if you were to send me an offer with a dummy payslip, we could have this conversation perhaps at a different time. Or if you use a recruiter, you could say, my recruiter has positioned me at X, and if you wouldn't mind negotiating with them, those would be good answers. I see there's a hand up.
Yes, Gita. I have had quite a numerous events on this particular question. The one answer that I normally give is that I usually say market related and explore on that and say that it must be a salary that I'm able to move around if I need to relocate, if I need to rent. And that's what I usually say. And the other day, this company called me, and I will need to relocate if they end up calling me for the second round of interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And they cornered me into giving a minimum figure, of which it wasn't something like I just didn't know how to navigate around that type of a question.
Mm-hmm.
So it is always a tricky question for me. So yeah.
I'm going to go back to again. So you say I typically say market related. And if I go to you, and what is a market related salary? What are you going to say to me? So you really need to know. And if you see, when I went back to the research that you needed to do, the the whole logistics around it was something you needed to research. So you could have said, without a lot of information, I researched that this was a market-related salary. This is how much it might cost me to live there. This, these are factors that I'd need to consider. And therefore, I would look at. There's, it's a catch-22 question. You cannot always have a perfect answer. You could shoot yourself in the foot, or you can score. You've just got to know your facts and figures, and you've got to be able to express them in a way that they can see that you know your stuff. It's just really, there isn't a good one. That's why I said this is a conversation all on its own, and probably could talk about this for an hour as a topic by itself. So we're going to leave those. There's a bunch of out of the ordinary questions you can get, and I have seen and heard all of them. If your mother were to tell me the worst thing about you, what would she say? Or what is the one thing you don't like about yourself? Or what is the best thing somebody would say about you? Or if we were to find out something that would surprise us about you, what would that be? Or those curveball questions. If you were a fruit, what would you be? There's all sorts of questions that you could get. What you need to do, no matter what the question is keep the job spec in mind. Make sure that you don't undo all the good things you said before by saying something that is contrary to what you've said before. So what is the worst thing your mother would say? Your mom would say, if you go back to trying to convince her to go to the party, that you're so good at pushing the boundaries. You could word it that way, but now they're going, oh my goodness, this person's not going to follow the rules. They're constantly going to be challenging me, blah, blah, blah. It's a choice of words. So you might want to rather say that I am particularly good at looking at all avenues and all sides of the story to present my case. That also could be considered pushing the boundaries, right? So think carefully about it. Don't talk about something that could undo something. The why should I be a fruit thing can also be related to the role. Think about the qualities of a particular fruit and the qualities of a role and see if you can marry the two together. It's role specific. They're not asking it of you for no good reason. They either want to see how you think on your feet or how you experience your self-awareness relative to a role. But trust me, you can turn almost any question into a strategic opportunity to answer. Right, I'll answer at the end because we are now fast running out of time. So what if you talk too much or talk too little? The STAR method, the practice, the timing yourself will help you manage that. But you can learn to read the room. So if your interviewer is constantly like frowning or is starting to lose focus, you can say, I'm going to keep this high level. If you need more information, feel free to ask me. If you don't have experience, you've never dealt with something specific, you can say, I don't have experience. I've never dealt with that situation. But if I were to, I would do, or I think I would do X, Y, and Z. Reading the room, so important. You want to look for body language, facial expressions. Are they looking confused? So maybe you didn't explain well. Ask if you need to clarify something. If you're losing them, stop talking. So you can nip it in the bud and go, is that sufficient information for you? Because if you start to lose them too early on, you've lost them for the rest. What if you go blank completely? I have no clue. I know the answer, I have no clue. It's okay. You're human, right? That happens in the workplace. So go. I'm sorry, I've completely hit a blank. Can we park that one and go back to it a little bit later on? And if you still don't know, you're going to go, you know what? Murphy's Law, I genuinely can't remember. But how about the minute I leave here, I send you a response to that question so that you can see how I would have tackled it. Storytelling. It's not like I answered it just now. It's not just what you say, but how you say it. So I'm not going to repeat that again. And my best advice, keep data and build on your examples. So if in all of your interviews you got asked a certain bunch of questions, start noting those down. Start noting how you answered those, whether you felt you had enough examples, whether there were loads of follow-up questions from your answer, because that could frame how you might deal with it going forward. And if they asked you a lot of questions, it might mean you didn't answer it too well, or that you answered the questions that they asked could be incorporated next time round that you answer this question. So keep it in mind, build on that data, utilize what you've got to do it better. Lastly, if you start strong, end strong. Answering questions or asking questions at the end is a strategic opportunity for you. Don't miss it. It's like having an argument with your partner. You want to have the last word. You want to be remembered when they walk out. Don't ask what could have been found in a basic search or on the job spec. It looks like you paid no attention to detail. Think about what might have been said in the interview. Ask questions around that. You said something about, I'd like to clarify or get more information. Think about how it positions you. So you don't want to go, what is it a day in the life of this role like? And I'm going to go like, what, did you not read the job spec, dude? Like, that's what you're going to do, right? A better way to ask it is, I see all the duties in that job spec. What would you say are the 3 most important functions of this job so that I know what would be a focus when I'm successful for this position? Much better way to ask it. There's loads of good questions. Be careful that you're not sticking to the same Google ones. What is the culture of this organization? Because they're not going to say, you know what, it's terrible to work here. Eh? People are mean, they micromanage you. So you've got to be mindful of how you ask and what it is that you might get. Closing statements of interest. You want to say, thank you for your time. Based on what I've heard and what I think about my experience and my skills, I do believe that I would like to take this forward. I'm looking forward to your feedback. Where you think it's valuable, offer to do something to demonstrate your skill. Say, if there's an assessment I can do, or if I can provide you examples of my content, or say give you a link to my Git account, please let me know, because I'm keen to provide any other substantiating documents or data that will help you make a decision in this. And that is that. You have done your job. And hopefully I have done mine. Any other questions?
Thanks, Gita. There is a question about why should we hire you? Somebody gave an example and they just wanted to know if you can improve on their answer. With a strong foundation from marketing, consumer behavior, and design thinking project, which was aimed to support local struggling business, I believe I can excel in this role. For example, I obtained a distinction from design thinking project, showcasing my strong dedication to support local businesses and delivering quality results. And how do you she wants to know if she can improve on it and how can she answer better.
Okay, you can give a more direct answer. So you can say, on this project, I achieved X, or an improvement in this percentage. You could talk about, to be a little bit, it's a very good framework. It's such a good answer, but try and be a little bit more specific so that, and if you can, take context into account. So if it were a specific set of clients, so the same industry, the same products, competitors, try and use the examples that would be most relevant to their environment instead of all of the projects I worked on. These specific ones in this specific space had this specific outcome. And then you're really, really, really got a good framework over there. It's a really good one.
The next one is, how does one answer, why do you want to leave your current company?
That's a very good one. Okay, so again, you don't want to throw your company under the bus. But the honest truth is you need to also be honest, because I, as a hiring manager, HR, or the recruiter, we're going to go and do references. We're going to go and try and verify your stories, right? So if you're leaving for growth, you need to understand what that is, right? Because let's say you go from a developer here to a developer there. Why would you leave? So you could say, I'm looking to leave because the scope of projects is becoming restricted, and I'm doing more maintenance than I'm doing new development. And I would also like to expose myself to e-commerce or fintech, whereas this organization restricts itself to this. That's growth. Because if you say growth to me, I'm going to go, yeah, there's a canteen in my new space. You can grow 2 pant sizes if you eat there every day. Do you know what I mean? So really sell yourself by your reason for leaving. It needs to make sense. If your environment is toxic, and trust me, this happens, and you don't want to throw your current employer under the bus, but you do want to say that it is common knowledge in today's market that your environment is very important to your development and your ability to deliver on expectations. You have found that this environment has led to the fact that is no longer the case, where I have tried to find accommodations and exceptions to managing this thing. It is no longer working for me, and I do not want to find myself in a position where I'm non-performing and would rather make a decision to move now rather than later. Does somebody want to give me an example of a reason they've had that they battle with? Maybe I can frame it for you specifically.
While we're waiting for that, what is your take on interviewees having notes with them during the interview?
I personally like it, right? The interviewer does. They have your CV. They've taken notes. They prepared. Why shouldn't you be? So I would like to say, don't read your notes every single answer. Like, tell me about yourself and why we should hire you. Those are questions you should kind of have. But you can say, and again, it's like addressing that elephant in the room. I do have some notes. Would you mind if I refer to them? Because I did spend some time making sure that I was well prepped for this interview and would like to make sure that I didn't miss anything. That's okay, because it shows you've made a declaration of interest. You've shown that you take the time to prepare. You've shown that you are diligent in making sure that you've covered everything. There's nothing wrong with it at all.
Okay, Njabula, do you want to unmute your mic and ask your question? You have your hand up. T. Mohammed, do you want to go? I see Njabula put his hand down.
So I had a question the other day, and it was posed, why would a doctor work with me rather than anyone else in the field? Granted that this doctor was in Joburg and I'm in Durban.
Mm-hmm.
So she has patients all over, but why would she want to work with me? And I was really stumped at answering the question. I have a personal relationship with her, but that's on one basis. This is going to be a working relationship, so the personal relationship will be put to aside at one point.
Mm-hmm. So what success have you had with a similar doctor or a similar problem? How would you motivate what value you would add to that doctor or that practice? And you mentioned Johannesburg and Durban. I think we've gone past location being a deal breaker. So it would be about you saying, this is the value that I've added to similar practices, or this is the outcomes I've had with similar situations, and I have a deep understanding of X, Y, and Z that would specifically deal with X, Y, and Z. It's that prep work. That's a question that would absolutely need to be prepped. You would need to have a good bunch of examples, maybe in specific fields for specific doctors, for specific issues, so that you've got almost like a database to tap in from when you have these questions. So when I said collect data and prep for your future ones, this is a good example. Go and sit down now and go, if I had to answer that in hindsight, what would I say now? Because it may come up again. Very likely come up again.
So I still don't know how to answer the question, actually, because...
Okay. So tell me what this doctor does.
She's a breast cancer specialist surgeon. So she specializes in breast cancer.
And what would you do for this doctor? So what would be the task? So just tell me what your function would be.
I would be supplying breast prosthetics and post-surgical compression garments to her
Okay.
and to the patients.
Okay. So if he could buy this from anywhere else, right? How would you make sure that he has the right products for the right treatment on time, every time? How would you do that? That's your answer.
Okay.
Because I can buy a pen anywhere, right? Literally, I can buy a pen anywhere. But how sometimes my knowing what the right pen is framed by the information that I get, my product knowledge, my technical know-how, my success rates with previous doctors, my delivery results. It's what do you do differently? How would you add value? So if there's a particularly difficult case, do you have similar case histories that you can talk about? If there were short notice, like emergencies, how have you been able to deliver products in short spaces of time, regardless of your geographical location? That's your answer. Maybe it's your accessibility. Maybe it's your consultativeness. Maybe it's your understanding of all the nuances of different products. So without slating another product, being able to talk through the application of product for differing outcomes, maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Other questions?
None, and we are 4:10, so I don't want to keep anyone on a Friday afternoon, especially with the weather here in KZN. Just a reminder to all attendees that we have rescheduled our Getting the Most Out of LinkedIn workshop from the 20th of March. It's now on the 27th of March. It is going to be a hybrid event. We have limited seating available, so I have put the link in the chat box. You're more than welcome to register if you want to be in person or register if you want to be online. And then our next workshop will be on the on the 25th of March, which is time management. I've also included that link on the chat box, so you guys are more than welcome to register. Once again, thank you so much for your participation, your interaction. You guys are always so interactive and with Gita, and we're so appreciative of our recruiters care, because I want to say it again. Gita and her team are doing this for free on a volunteer basis. They're not here to make money, and for them to give up their time. We're very grateful for the collaboration and the partnership. The link to the workshop will be made available. I will send it out latest Monday. Gita, thank you once again. Always amazing to have you and host you and your team. Thank you so much, attendees, for staying for the whole workshop. I can see there's still a host of you here. You've always been amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. From the Advancement and Alumni Relations team, we are grateful for this, and we really hope that these sessions are assisting you and helping you to integrate into mainstream employment or move to a better job, a better opportunity. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care. See you soon.
Have an awesome and safe weekend, guys. Get home safe and stay dry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.